I want to make you guys aware of that. So when we start a new chapter, we do have a lot of vocabulary words that we've got to cover. So hopefully some of this stuff you all have heard and talked about before. You all write the definition. The words should be on your paper. So I'll give you all a couple minutes to write out the definitions there. And if there's anything else that you need to write, I'll make sure to let you know. So I'll give you all a couple minutes to write this definition, and then we'll talk about each one of these. Sum, additive inverse, and net gain or net loss. Alright, so as you're finishing getting those down, sum, hopefully you guys are aware of that. It's the answer to an addition problem. Not every question is just going to say add these two numbers. It might say find the sum, and so that tells you got to add them. Additive inverse, this is a term that we're going to use and see for the rest of the year. And so we talk about it on day one, really. We're going to use this quite a bit this year. Additive inverses, if two numbers are additive inverses, they are opposites. So the opposite of 2 is negative 2. The opposite of 10 is negative 10. The opposite of 1,000 is negative 1,000. And there's something special about additive inverses that when we add them, something happens. We'll talk about that a little later in our examples. But additive inverses, they're important because you got to know what happens whenever you add them together. And then a net gain or net loss. So what that means is you're going to have a list of numbers. Some might be positive, some might be negative. You're going to add all those together. If you end up with a positive number at the end, it's a net gain. So net gain would be if your answer ends up being positive. A net loss would mean your answer ends up being negative. So one example you might see a net gain or a net loss is if you have a bunch of numbers that you're putting into your bank account. So I'm going to put money into my bank account, and I'm going to take money out. I'm going to put money in, take money out. Put money in, take money out. At the end of the month, you want a net gain. You want more money than zero, basically. So a positive number means a net gain. Negative answer means a net loss. And so it'll always be during a certain time frame. So 2 days or 1 month or 1 year, something like that. Okay? So sum, additive inverse, and then net gain or net loss. All right, so then we've got deposit, withdraw, and profit. All of those deal with money. So a deposit would mean you are adding money to a bank account. If we have a deposit and we're talking about a number, it would always be a positive number. If you withdraw money, you're taking money out, so that would mean it's going to be a negative number. And then profit. So profit is more about, like, if you start a business, your goal is to make a profit. So people might buy stuff from you, but you want the amount that you earned to be more than the amount you spend. So let's say you spend $200 on materials, you want to make more than $200. If you don't get a profit. You're still losing money at the end. Profit is really the same thing as net gain or net loss. A profit would be a net gain. So it's the same thing as a net gain. At the end of that time frame, you want more money than what you spent, what you started with. Okay? So a profit and net gain are the same thing, but you're going to see both of those words used as you go through your questions. All right, so those are terms that you're not just going to see today. You're going to see those terms throughout the next 3 weeks. So if you ever need to look back and see what these mean, especially deposit, withdraw, and profit, this will be a good paper to use so you can see what they mean. Okay? So when we are adding integers, we're going to have 4 different types of problems. You could have a positive number plus another positive. That's the easy one. A positive plus a negative, or a negative plus a positive. Or you could be adding 2 negative numbers together. So those are the 4 types of problems that you're going to see today. Here in a second, we'll talk about how to answer each one. Alright, so talking about what to do when we see each type of problem, this slide is the really important one. Okay? If both numbers have the same sign, so if they are both positive or if they are both negative, forget about the positive and the negative and just add them together. We will always focus on if our answer is positive or negative at the very end. If the numbers have different signs, so if you've got a negative plus a positive or a positive plus a negative, you're actually going to subtract the 2 numbers. And you always put the bigger number first. When you subtract, always put the bigger number first. So you might have to switch the order, but always put the bigger number first. After we add or subtract, then we focus on, is our answer going to be positive or negative? The sign of the answer is the sign of the bigger number. So if we've got negative 10 and a positive 7, 10 is bigger than 7, so our answer is going to be negative. So we look at the bigger number, whatever the sign of that number is, positive or negative, that's what the sign of the answer is going to be. So if they have the same sign, you add. If they have different signs, you subtract. All right, so let's look at some examples. Okay, so that's on the back. So our first one, we got negative 26 plus negative 17. So go back to those rules. If you need to keep flipping back and forth, that's fine. Okay. They both have the same sign. They're both negative. So since they have the same sign, we're going to add them. Forget about the negatives and just do 26 plus 17. It's going to get you 43. So now we'll write 43 up here, and then we'll determine, is it going to be a positive or a negative? Well, that's where you look at the bigger number. The bigger number is 26. 26 is negative. So our answer is negative 43. Negative 43. Okay, so let's look at our second one. 7 plus negative 9. They have different signs. 7 is positive, 9 is negative. So we're going to subtract. So 9 minus 7 is 2. Now we got to figure out, is it positive 2 or negative 2? Look at the bigger number. 9 is the bigger number. 9 is negative. So 2 is negative. Before we move to the last one, just something you might notice, all the negative numbers are in parentheses. That's just so there's not a plus followed by a minus. That's kind of to break it up so it's easier to see what's happening. Then we got negative 14 plus positive 24. We're going to subtract as well. So remember what I said, if we're subtracting, the bigger number comes first. Subtraction really doesn't work if you put the smaller number first. So do 24 minus 14, which equals 10. Now we focus on, is it positive 10 or negative 10? Well, 24 is the bigger number. 24 is positive. So 10 is also going to be positive. Positive 10. So those rules, those two rules that we have, that's what you're looking at every time you're solving one of these problems, okay? Any questions? All right, so you all go ahead and do the next 3 on your own. Determine if you add or subtract, do that, and then see which sign your answer is going to be, positive or negative. Okay, so this first one, we've got positive 10 plus negative 12. Are we going to add or subtract them? Vincent? We're going to subtract because they have different signs. So 12 minus 10 gives us 2. And then Vincent, tell us if it's going to be positive or negative.
Negative.
Why?
Because the bigger number is 12. It's negative.
12 is the bigger number. 12 is negative, so our answer is negative 2. Good. Okay, negative 11 plus negative 18. We're going to add or subtract these two. Jaden? We're going to add them because they're both negative. So 11 plus 18 would give us 29. Positive or negative? Negative. Why?
Because 18 is negative.
18 is the bigger number. 18 is negative. So our answer is negative 29. Good. All right, so next one, we've got 3 different numbers we're adding. Somebody tell me how we can do this. Yara? All right, so one way she said to do it was you could look at the 2 negatives, add those together because they're both a negative. So negative 15 plus negative 2 would be negative 17. And then do 2 plus negative 17. You would subtract those 2 because they're a different sign. 17 minus 2 is 15. Positive or negative 15? Negative 15. Because right now the 17 is bigger, so the 15 is going to be negative. There were other ways you could do this as well. You could have done it right in order. Or, I want to show you the kind of the trick now. 2 and negative 2. If you add those together, 2 plus negative 2, what is the answer? 0, right? Doesn't matter if 0 is positive or negative because it's neither. Okay? But 2 and negative 2, go back to the very start. They are called additive inverses. Right? They're opposites. Every time you add those 2 numbers together, you will always get 0. So, what's 10 plus negative 10?
0.
What's 1,000 plus negative 1,000? Anytime you take 2 additive inverses or 2 opposites and add them, the answer is always 0. So if you were to add these 2 and you get 0, what you're left with is negative 15. Yep. So that's another reason why it works out that way. Okay? So if you add 2 additive inverses, you always get 0. All right. Word problem. Roller coaster starts at point A. It goes up 20 feet. It goes down 32 feet. How should we write down 32 feet? Josh? Negative 32. And then it goes up 16 feet to point B. So first of all, write an addition expression to represent the roller coaster site. So we've got to make sure we do everything this question asks. So if I were to ask you this question, I would need to see an addition expression and then the answer. So 20 and 16 are both going to be positive because you're going up. So we got 20. Can we have a subtraction sign in this expression? What type of expression does it need to be? Addition. So we've got to add everything. That is why making 32 a negative is important. Since it's an addition expression, we've got to add every single number. So 20 plus negative 32 plus 16. And then we find the sum. So what I would do is just do 20 plus negative 32. One's positive, one's negative. So we need to, if they're different signs, we would subtract. So 32 minus 20 would be 12. Positive or negative 12? Which number's bigger? So 32 makes that a negative. And then we've got negative 12 plus 16. Add or subtract? Subtract. Negative and positive. Different signs, we subtract. 16 minus 12 is 4. Positive or negative 4? Fiona?
Positive.
Positive 4. 16 is the bigger number, and 16 is a positive. So, the last thing that we need to do is explain our answer. Positive 4 means that point B is 4 feet higher than point A. Point B is 4 feet higher than point A. That's what that positive 4 means. Because we start at A, we do everything, we end up at positive 4. So if it was negative 4, point B would have been 4 feet lower. Since it's a positive 4, it's 4 feet higher. Does that make sense? Any questions there? All right. Let's look at our next one together then. So it's asking us to do the same thing. Take all of this, write an addition expression, and then find the net gain. So basically, is it a positive or a negative at the end? So if they gain 7 yards, let's make that a positive 7. Plus, because it's an addition expression, if they lose 5 yards, make that a negative 5, right? Lose 4 yards plus negative 4. And then gain 12 yards plus positive 12. So that's our expression. 7 plus negative 5 plus negative 4 plus 12. What I would do here is just split it up half and half. 7 plus negative 5. Do we add or subtract 7 and negative 5? Subtract. 7 minus 5 is 2. Positive or negative 2? Positive, because 7's bigger. Same thing here. Negative 4 plus 12. They're different signs. Subtract them. 12 minus 4 is 8. And that's going to be a positive 8 because 12 is bigger. So the last thing you do, 2 plus 8 would be positive 10. Since it is positive 10, would it be a net gain or net loss? Net gain. So they gained 10 yards from where they started at. 10 yards from where they started. All right. So you all go ahead and do that last one on your own. Do that last question on your own. I see most of you all doing this right. If he withdraws money, what are we going to write that withdraw 25 as? Yep, minus 25 plus deposits 53, positive 53. So withdraw he's taking out, deposit he's putting in. So negative 25 plus positive 53, add or subtract? Subtract because they're different signs. And so 53 minus 25 would get you 28. Positive or negative?